Hello boys and girls, you join me, AndyManCam, as we're about to make some homemade heated underwear. Well, there's no escaping it, winter is definitely here, but like a hell of a lot of you out there, I really want to keep on riding in the winter. But if we were to plot a curve of enjoyment versus temperature, as that temperature gets lower, that curve drops off pretty steeply. But I'm going to try and extend my riding into the winter months by making a heated waistcoat. Now you can already get heated waistcoats, and I'm going to come clean. This one in fact was a heated waistcoat that I bought from Maplin about 3 years ago. It was volcanic heat or some nonsense it was called. It had 2 battery packs, one in each pocket with 3 AA batteries in each, and it would heat these tiny little pads which were on your chest for what felt like 3 degrees higher than body temperature for about 30 minutes. It was absolutely rubbish. So with my inability to accept that something is rubbish, I, in all my wisdom, decided that I would plug it into the 12-volt supply on my motorbike and try and have unending heat, and surprise surprise, it overloaded the circuits and it melted the filaments out, so that was the end of that. But no great loss. I stripped all of the lining out and used it as a fleece waistcoat anyway, but I want to make it better. And to do that, I'm going to need a secret weapon, and here it is. The ultimate speed beheizbare Autositzauflage, or to you and me, heated seat cushion, which I actually bought from Lidl for the princely sum of €12.99. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to rip it apart and I'm going to rob the heat panels out of it and then sew them into this waistcoat. So let's get on with it. Now this seat cushion would ordinarily sit on top of your ordinary car seat. You plug this into your cigarette lighter socket, switch it on, and it warms your arse and your back. But I want it to warm me on my motorbike, and obviously it's going to look pretty silly if I stick this on the bike. Put that aside for now. First off, I need to take my very specific thread unpicking tool and just cut my way around these threads. I'll speed this up and see you in a second. Obviously goes without saying, be careful not to cut your table, otherwise her and doors will go friggin' bananas. Well, that's that lining all gone. Saw that over there. Thank you, Duff. And now hopefully, when I open this up, there will be 2 distinct removable heating elements which I can take out and put in my waistcoat. Look at that, there they are, even fabric backed, so I can just sew them straight in. It has got a couple of Phillips screwdrivers holding the wiring in there, so I'm going to need to go and get a screwdriver for that. Ting! Pull the 2 sides of that clamp apart, and then should be able to pull this right off. Stick that out of the way. Thank you, Lord Vader. Look at that, just flop off. Now, I'm sure I can find some kind of a use for that at some point in the future, so if you wouldn't mind looking after that as well, thanks Lord Vader. There you go, get yourself comfortable, Duff. So there we have it, our 2 heating pads, ready to go into the waistcoat. I do feel like I probably should have warned you a little bit earlier, but for any of you out there who are of an impossibly manly disposition, I'm afraid there will be some sewing. The first clue probably should have been the sewing kit in the corner of the table there. So if the idea of that offends your hairy biker disposition, you might want to switch off now. For the rest of you, let's crack on. So if we flip my waistcoat open, the choice I have to make now is, do I stick both of these pads in the back like that, much like it was arranged in the seat cushion, or do I stick one on either side in the front, giving me full frontal warmness? Actually, to be honest, it looks like the wiring is answering the question for me, because that's not big enough to go across. And I can't be asked to rewire any of this stuff. This is supposed to be a quick job. So, both in the back like that. That should do the trick. And then I can just poke the wiring out of the pocket, and that gives me somewhere to store all of my cables and stuff as well when I'm not plugged in. Oh, I'm quite excited about this. I think it's going to work wonderfully. Now, if I was really lazy, I could, of course, just sew it straight down like that and that'd be it. But I'm a little bit concerned about having this stuff directly in contact with my skin. So what I'm actually going to do is take an old black t-shirt, cut it down the seams, and then sew the back of the t-shirt onto the jacket, sandwiching the heated pads between the cotton and the jacket. I might even, actually, thinking about it, I might even just go for a double layer and sew the whole t-shirt on like that, just to make sure that this stuff isn't going to burn me. And also, the original had shiny, nylon-y kind of material as the lining, and that melted really quick when the filament burnt out here. I mean, on the one hand, that shows that the fleece material is a lot more resilient to the heat than that stuff was. But on the other hand, it shows me that I'd rather have something like cotton to avoid any more melting scenarios. I don't really fancy this melting on my back, if I'm completely honest. But anyway, let's prepare the t-shirt. Of course, another way you could do this, and it's something I did actually consider as well, was to take two t-shirts, sew these heated panels into the back of the one t-shirt, and then put another t-shirt on top of that, sew them together so you have a double layer of cotton, and then you actually have a heated t-shirt. But I think the fleece waistcoat idea is going to be a little bit more versatile, so I'm going to go with that. Stick that to the side for now, if you wouldn't mind, Darth, thank you. Oh, too easy. I'm going to try and go for an unpicking of the seam rather than just ripping it apart, so I don't end up with tatty edges. Okay, well that didn't work. Tatty edges it is then. Oh, slipped. Bugger. Never mind. It's not going to be winning any prizes for looks, this contraption. Right, well there's one sleeve off. Save that as a miniature oil rag, I think. Thank you, Darth. Now do the other one. I have to apologise for the choice of colour here. Black probably wasn't the best to be able to show you what's going on, but it's not rocket science. I'm unpicking a seam with a Stanley knife. I think you can figure that bit out on your own. Of course, kids, make sure you do this with family supervision. That way, if you sever an artery or something, there's somebody on hand to drive you to the hospital. Nearly there. And that's that. Thank you, Darth. So that's both the sleeves chopped off, one slightly neater than the other, but there's the merit of practice, I suppose. Although it doesn't really matter too much, because what I'm going to do now is actually just cut across here, because otherwise this collar's going to be sticking in my back, and there's a big hole here, so who wants that? And then we'll have a nice big double cotton piece to stick our heat pads onto. Get this as straight as I can. There's another garage rag. Thank you, Duff. There we go. Double flexi cotton, sweat absorbing, heat distributing piece of t-shirt. Try and get it as flat as possible, and then I'm going to lay the pads on the t-shirt. Actually, while I'm at it, I'm going to trim this extra off the sides, being very careful not to cut the electrical filaments, otherwise it'll be knackered and then this whole video will be a waste. Now, it all may look very random, but I have purposely put the cables out this side because I want the cable and the switch to be on the left-hand side so that I can switch it on and off without having to remove my throttle hand. So there is some thought going into this. There is a method to the madness, folks. Not much, but a little bit. It looks like we're going to have a little bit of an overlap because the t-shirt isn't quite long enough. Chopped off too much, didn't I? Never mind. That fits absolutely wonderfully. That's all set. Now I'm going to do a little bit of sewing. It's black, so I think we'll go for some black cotton, just to make sure you absolutely can't see what's going on. I might even stick a couple of pins in just to hold it in place while I'm dicking around. There we go, one there. Double up here for efficiency's sake. See, I've been living in Germany for too long already. One there, and then a couple at the top. Isn't it funny, I was so worried about those seams and then I chopped them off anyway. The power of hindsight, eh? When I was a kid and people used to talk about hindsight, I just thought they had a pair of glasses which had baked beans in the lenses or something. Hindsight. Yeah. The things you think when you're a kid, eh? Now, at this point, if I had a sewing machine, I could have this done in seconds, but as I have moved here from another country, I can't pop down Mum's house and borrow a sewing machine, so the only sewing machine I've got is the 5-finger variety. But thankfully, due to the magical wonders of video editing trickery, this won't be too painful for you. Right, started this on Thursday, it's now Wednesday, but we are back, and pad is now fully sewn in. It's not the tidiest sewing job in the world, but let's be honest, I'm making a heated vest to go underneath a motorbike jacket, not an Armani suit. The eagle-eyed members of the audience will notice that the pads aren't in line anymore. That is on purpose. It's just so that these wires and cables and things are, as much as possible, out of the way of the heated element. If they get hot enough that they can melt this electrical cable, then I think I've got bigger problems, like the blazing inferno of plastic on my shoulders turning into a napalm jacket. And I've also looped the thread around the cables there, you can see, just to keep them all tidy. And a couple of pieces of PVC tape just to keep the cables and everything in order. And now we're ready to stick this into the jacket. Making sure that the wires are going the right way so that they end up on the left-hand side of me. Try and lay it out as flat as I possibly can. And then, much as before, I'm going to pin it down, sew around it, and then I'll probably trim off the extra t-shirt because there's no real point leaving this fabric in there. It's not going to be doing anything. I'll have one up there, split the difference to stop it creeping. One down this bottom corner, again split the difference. Over here in this corner, in the middle, and the middle on this end. Just go for one right in the very centre as well, just to stop it all from getting bunched up. So once again, back to a bit more sewing. Again, black thread, so you're not really going to be able to see what I'm doing, but this is not going to be the most exciting part again. As before, I won't expect you to sit through this nonsense. Actually, with black cotton on a black top, probably looks like I'm just pretending with invisible string. The invisible knot. I'm making the Emperor's new waistcoat. Don't sit through this. Although actually, I have just realised that if I had just pinned the t-shirt onto the pads on this side, like I've done here, I could have sewed it all together in one go, couldn't I? Oh well, never mind. Hindsight again. Oh my god, I'm so bored. Get it? So bored because I'm sewing. Oh, never mind. Right, we're just about finished here, which is a bloody good job because I am quite literally at the end of my tether. I've lost the thread. I'm bursting at the seams. Rah, rah, rah. Other sewing associated jokes. Quite literally at the end of my tether, I've got about 2 inches of cotton left, just to pinch it off, as it were. Right, that is that. I've actually saved myself a little bit of time by leaving this bottom seam open. Saving time both now because, well, I don't have to sew across there, so that's taken 3/4 of the time that it could have taken if I'd gone all the way around. And time later because if I need to get into here and mess with anything or just to inspect to see if it's melting or catching fire, I don't have to unpick any seams to do that. Get rid of that. Being careful not to cut through the fleece as well. That's one side. Look after that, Darth. It's always handy to have a Dark Lord of the Sith hanging around to look after your offcuts. So now, to do something about this cable, I'm thinking the best thing to do is going to be to run it down the seam and then poke it out the bottom of this pocket here. Because I'm thinking if I poke it through the top of the pocket, the weight of it is going to cause it to gape and just be uncomfortable. So once again, back to the cotton, I'm afraid. Top tip for you if you want to thread a needle to make it a bit easier, if you chop the end off with a pair of scissors like that, you get a nice clean end to stick through the hole. That's what she said. I'm quite simply just very loosely going to lash this cable to the seam here. It's exciting stuff, isn't it? I'm expecting millions of views from this. Watching a grown man sewing by hand. Sadly, due to the nature of this operation, you couldn't say that it's a seamless integration. Maybe I'll write about this on one of the ADV forums. I'll have to start a new thread. Okay, I'll stop now. Well, that's as far as I need to go for that, so do a couple of round and rounds just to make sure there's a nice strong end to that. I think that ought to do it. So now, to poke it into this pocket. Softly, softly, catchy monkey. Go, I think that ought to do it. Shove that through there. Shove all of that nonsense through there. Is it coming or what? So there we go, that's got that. So then I've got a fair old length of cable for me to run round to my cigarette lighter socket, and then the switch, which can hang out the bottom of my jacket. I can switch it on or off at my leisure. I just need to patch up this seam again now. So, more sewing, I'm afraid. Oh, you tied my little finger in there. That would have been annoying. I had to wear it forever then. Right, there we go. That off. That's lovely jubbly. I mean, let's be honest, the only thing I'm probably ever going to hold in that pocket is going to be this cable now. So, like everything else, it doesn't have to be perfect. That's that, because when I bundle this up, stuff it in the pocket. There we go. Fleece vest with a double heated pad all the way up the back. I am quite pleased with that. So now the next stage, what we need to do is work out how we're going to connect it up to the bike. So meet in the garage in, what, 3 seconds? Cool, see you there.